Hello, 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 good people. We are in the building. This is the DVP show, Random Thoughts with DVP. I am your uh, co-host of sorts, Theo Dwayne Banks. We have our illustrious co-host and I would say executive producer, Roy, is in the building. Um, we're waiting on DVP to join us this evening. We got a lot to talk about. Um,
For real?
exciting,
What
exciting
happened?
times, huh?
What happened? Did I miss something?
Yeah, exciting times, and by exciting I mean exciting as in the Titanic. Exciting, like when you're watching the Titanic sink. That is an exciting experience. Um, but it just sucks because we're on the boat. Um, so let's go ahead and just kind of dive into it. We are dealing with the sobering reality that Donald J. Trump will be occupying the White House in about a month, about 6 weeks now. He was elected yesterday evening in, by all accounts, a fair election. So you know, that's good for America, especially when we consider what happened 4 short years ago. So he was elected in a fair election. Um, I don't know if anyone was prepared for the outcome in terms of how this would kind of unroll. This was he well, first of all, let's just start with Democrats got their ass whipped last night. Um, we
Yeah, that's the
not
easy way to say it.
yeah. Democrats, they it was just they lost the White House, they lost the House, they lost the Senate. We already have a very conservative Supreme Court, so this is going to be a time um, where we are pretty much politically at their mercy. Um, so I'm gonna tackle a couple of topics that are just kind of that's kind of been on my heart, not just since yesterday evening, but just in general. And then, of course, Roy, you chime in whenever you feel led to, and then of course we'll wait for DVP to hop on there as well. But um, I'm gonna
Yeah,
start
he's
with
on his way in. He had to do a hard reset on his system. So
okay. Um, I'm gonna start with this question. This is for Roy. This is for the audience. Do Democrats owe black men an apology?
oh hell yeah. I think they do. And I'm normally not even one to play into this stuff. But the whole narrative, because so here's the first thing, and I said this on somebody else's post today. First off, for you to think that 100% of anybody is going to vote for one particular candidate is just asinine. It's idiotic. It's
Right.
not going to happen. We are two different people. There's too many different people, too many different thoughts, all that kind of stuff. Um, but the fact that the black men that did vote came out for the Democratic Party 80% still, you know, that whole narrative that they're pushing, and people are still pushing, which is the worst part about it.
Right.
Some folks are doing it. I've seen some posts today, man, that one of the friends of mine shared. And it's interesting because it seemed that the people who were posting it were from the LGBT community.
Mhm.
And they literally had the nerve to sit there after seeing all the stuff that comes out, talk about some gay men and black women, black gay men and black gay women came out for Kamala, and the black straight men didn't. It's like, dude, what are you talking about?
First of all, is
It's
there
like,
any data that breaks it down to that granular?
no, not that I know of. I haven't seen any, but this narrative that they want to push. I said this to me is just more trying to figure out ways to separate it, some things of that nature. But
yeah,
yeah,
ways to separate, ways to scapegoat, ways to malign, ways to chastise, ways to embarrass, ways to shame black men, ways to infantilize black men. I think so. For anybody who hasn't gotten a chance to look at the exit polls that have come out since last night, so we have a breakdown of sex by race. Okay, so among white men, who constitute 34% of the electorate, 39% of them voted for Harris, 59% voted for Trump. Of white women, who constitute 37% of the electorate, 47% voted for Harris and 52% voted for Trump. So among white men and white women, just, as a general rule, this is kind of how they roll. The majority of them voted for Trump. And then we have black men who ironically here. So ironically, black men, not ironically, but black men constitute 5% of the electorate. And we voted for Harris at 78% and for Trump at 20%. Black women, who constitute 7% of the electorate, voted 92% Harris and 7% Trump. And then we have Latino men who they showed out. They are in competition with white men. They voted 44% Harris and 54% Trump. And then Latino women were 61% Harris. Still, when you compare that to black women, that's, it's dismal. Not dismal. I guess dismal if you were a Democrat. And 37% Trump. And then for all other races, we have 50% for Harris and 45% for Trump. So DVP, I posed a question right before you hopped on. Do the Democrats owe black men an apology? I think they owe us. I think they owe us an apology, but this is not a time for reconciliation. I think that the way, as they have for the last 3 elections, they prime the electorate to blame black men in case there's a loss. And then when they win, black men don't get any credit for how we show up at the polls. And then, of course, when they lose, we get all of the blame. And when you look at the fact that we constitute the smallest of the electorate, 5%, and yet so much pressure is placed on black men to vote as a block. It's one way we're going to vote as a block. So much pressure is already put on us to do that. Well, then it's also we're also expected to and I think in the case of the Obamas, I hope that this kind of signals the beginning of the divorce proceedings between the black male voter, black Americans in general, and the Obamas, because the way that we had Barack Obama about 4 weeks ago, who, went on this whole thing about, it's the brothers. He don't even say brothers like we say brothers. It was weird. Like, he was talking about how, they're noticing, there's not as much energy around, Harris among men, but then he zeroed in on the brothers, and then we have Michelle Obama, who just recently starts to make these, I gotta call them threats. I gotta call them. I mean, when you suggest to women that there should be some kind of consequence, marital consequence, if your husband goes to the booth and doesn't vote like you, while you get to go home to your husband, it says a lot. It says a lot about what they feel about Black people in general, and how they will use this very tender issue, which is like relationships, and exploit that in the interest of their own political agenda. But numbers don't lie, right? And once again, Black men have demonstrated that despite what the popular narrative is, that we show up and we vote more like we are more aligned with our women in terms of our voting patterns than any other male electorate. And then on top of that, we are the issues that we support politically are the most progressive among the male electorate. And it just doesn't really, there's no way to reconcile that when you kind of look at what our sort of brand is, as far as being the face of misogyny, the face of misogynoir, against how we actually what actually happens when we show up to the polls. And so I think that black men are owed an apology. I think that Black men we need to have some real serious conversations with Black women offline about how we are going to show up together in the political space, and things that we will and will not allow. And there has to be a line in the sand that's drawn by Black men where there are things that you just don't get to do. And especially in the case of Obama, it's ironic because when Obama was kind of when he won the Iowa caucus, and we were like, oh, okay, he's got a shot. And we kind of collectively agreed that we were going to, we weren't going to publicly criticize him. We were going to just kind of see this thing through. And then we kind of collectively agreed that we would not make any appeals to Obama for policies that were exclusive to the Black community while he was in office. And so we often heard he's not the president of Black America, he's the president of all America. And then you fast forward 15 years, he's not the president anymore, but we still kind of see him as this kind of elder statesman, which he's earned that. And that same critique or that same rule doesn't apply in the reverse. So he's the president of Black America when he gets ready to chastise Black men, but he's not the president of all America when the data is right in our face and we see that, wait a second, it's not Black men. If you're going to take Black men to task, so be it, but go ahead and add white men into the mix and add Hispanics into the mix. And oh, by the way, Mrs. Obama, if you're going to encourage women and Black women in particular to, I've seen slogans like no something, no nookie. But if you're gonna kind of encourage that or suggest that for Black women, then you need to go after white women who continually betray women at the when they go to the voting booth. And so, and I'm not laying this defeat at the feet of the Obamas, but I am saying we have to retool, and in the process of retooling, we got to figure out, we got to put some guardrails up. And I said in another episode that Obama has been propped up as like the Black preacher. He's like a secular Black preacher, and much in the way that that the Black preacher is kind of gets this pass to, talk down to male parishioners, and play up to his, majority, Black female, support, and how we are seeing the exodus of Black men from the church space. If Democrats are not careful, we're going to see a similar exodus, and we're witnessing it right now, but slowly. We're going to see a similar exodus of Black men from the Democrat Party. Now, what I hope we don't do is go from, you know, the one plantation to another. You know what I mean? And I hope that we can be a little bit more strategic, and really put boundaries up about what, even, you know, policy wise, like what are we going to accept for ourselves. But it would be tragic, because there is a base, there is unity between Black men and Black women. The numbers support it, you know, and it would be tragic for Black men and Black women to splinter, and continue to splinter, going forward, because we haven't really corrected this thing. So I'm gonna repose the question, because I know I went on a little bit of a diatribe, but what do you all think out here? Do Democrats owe Black men an apology? How are we feeling about that?
Roy?
I didn't say something. It's your turn.
Okay. One, I don't believe anybody owes us an apology. I think what we're owed is a realistic education. Me and you have had several talks offline about symbolism and all these things that we do. Roy, right quick, go ahead and give your my JBN disclaimer.
The views and opinions expressed by the host and the guests are theirs and do not necessarily reflect those of the Jericho Broadcast Networks, its sponsors, advertisers, or partners.
So as we get into this whole election thing, and I'm watching what plays out, and I'm watching who they toss at us, or who blacks and Black men in general rebel against. And I'm gonna stick to one of the things that I always say is we have to start. We must stop with the ignorant rhetoric. First of all, there is no coalition where everybody does the same thing, not even LGBTQ plus. So we got to stop saying we got to all be on the same page. That in and of itself is ignorance that we spread. And when you speak about the Obamas or anybody else who speaks, the niggers is looking for somebody to lead them so they can blame if something go wrong. The Black people who are educated and know what they're doing, these people don't have a real effect on how they vote or where they vote, because they're educated enough to know that these symbols are for the uneducated or for those who can't make up their mind. Because the people who I look to for answers, ain't none of them ever said, well, you know, shit, Beyonce was at a thing. I think I'm gonna vote for her because of the Beehive, or Taylor Swift, and none of that shit. And when people say, oh, they don't represent me, well, they shouldn't. Nobody should represent you but you. It's crazy. One of my clients, I know he voted for Trump, and I know why. We're gonna still be friends day after tomorrow. But we're not educated enough to understand why people do stuff. And was Obama wrong for saying what he said? I can't say he was wrong, because then I'm saying he shouldn't have freedom of speech either. Just like people would say bad things about him and he didn't respond. I mean, if that's his opinion, it's his opinion. How we take it is how we take it. We can't, nobody can keep worried about whose feelings they're gonna hurt, especially if they ain't got nothing to lose. I'm gonna say some shit later on that, hey, I don't give a shit. That's why I told Roy to give y'all this disclaimer. That's the reason I got Theo on the show, because, hey, until the boss sends us a message to saying we can't say nothing about Kraft and Heinz, then we're gonna do what we do. We're gonna have uncomfortable conversations, but we're gonna talk about what needs to be talked about. I would say that 90% of people who vote, even though we sit back and we watch CNN, we watch MSNBC, we watch Fox, we watch this, we watch that, we listen more for content than for characters. And the people who don't know ain't watching this no way, or they don't know what they're listening for. It's a popularity thing, and they don't know who they're reaching for. But what we have got to do is, when I talk to Theo, when I talk to Roy, when I talk to a couple of women who I know and value their opinion when it comes to politics, we have to start listening to people who know politics, because everything else is a crapshoot. And blacks in general, in my world, are treated more like the senior prom. It's a popularity contest, and we're pushing a narrative that don't exist, but we're mad at a man who pushing a narrative that's false. Which one is worse? The one where we're pushing that makes no sense, or the lies that they telling that make no sense? We're almost the same creature. So if we get called out on that, then who's right and who's wrong? But
here's where I will push back just on one of your points. When we criticize Obama, we're howling at the moon. We're barking at the moon. When Obama criticizes us, he's creating a sunstorm. Like there's real implications. Like his words carry weight, and it used to not be that way. It used to be where, like, okay, this is just campaign speak, and we knew that, and we just kind of like, you play football, you get tackled, you walk away, and you still dab each other up at the end of the day. But when you move into territory, we are now, because the tension between black men and black women is at its highest, at least in the social media sphere. I don't want to be naive enough to think that the Obamas don't know what they're doing when they make these kinds of critiques. I think Obama knows that when he calls out when he calls out black men, that's a way to, it's almost like a dog whistle in some ways to black women. That number one, I got you, and I'm gonna get these men in line. I'm going to say the thing that you can't say in your own household. And then in the case of Michelle Obama, she knows that there's a marital crisis in our community, and there has been for quite some time. And so when you make suggestions that what we do in the do at the ballot should somehow have some kind of effect on our real family composition, like, let's walk it all the way out and say, okay, I'm married to my wife. And here's the thing. I do understand how critical it is to kind of be with someone that would vote against some of those very fundamental things, like women's rights, things like that, reproductive rights in particular. I get that part. But what it also kind of fans the flames of is, like, if you are not aligned with me 100%, that is now grounds to bust my family up. And it actually reminded me of what happened during COVID, when Biden was talking about this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and there were people and families that were really busted up, gutted up, my own included, because of differences around something that did not last more than 2.5 years. And so I do understand that for people who are a little bit more politically mature and just mature in general, no, that kind of criticism is going to roll off our backs. But let's say you're a young couple. Let's say you're newlyweds, you're under 25, and the husband is kind of like, working class, blue collar rather. He gets overtime. He's doing his thing. He works at Jiffy Lube. He's a great mechanic, but he's blue collar. But then the wife is, maybe she's a law clerk. And so Michelle Obama's opinion of her, or she sees herself in Michelle Obama, right? So when Michelle Obama speaks, she listens. And that dynamic, just because of their, like, who might have his ear versus who might have her ear, just because that dynamic is in place, her saying something as irresponsible as, leave your husbands, or, the whole thing could really it has a real effect on people are more impressionable than I think give them credit for being. It is not just folk who are not educated in a formal sense, but it's just people that are not politically, like I'll give you my own experience. In 2004, I left my church because my pastor said something that was like, I can't do it. Like you want to vote for you trying to suggest me vote for George Bush. But I wouldn't have done that in 2024 because I was politically immature. And I had to, in my world, if you didn't agree and align 100% with my worldview, then it was worth disposing of the relationship. And so when I hear Michelle Obama and Barack Obama make those critiques, I'm not really thinking about us or me or I'm thinking about these kids, who are just trying to find themselves politically and find where they fit. And Barack Obama and Michelle Obama are like the picture of, of success and all the things. They're the real life Huxtables by many measures. And how do we, as long as they are kind of amplified as these demigods, their opinion really does hold weight. And
who are they talking to? Who are they talking to? One of the things I did with this social media, and I told Roy this before when I started doing this show, I'm probably in 100 groups because I can align myself with you and Roy, and I will only know what you and Roy think. Unless I get in some of these other groups, I don't know what other people think. So when I'm giving my opinion, I have to base it on something other than my inner circle. And where I kick back with you is in a lot of these groups, I'm seeing the hatred that people who look like us have toward Black women. I see where there's 100 posts about if a Black woman wins, all these Black women are going to think they run the world, and we don't want that. So who is he talking to? Because it was definitely there. I saw it. I mean, I didn't know. Some of the groups that I was in, the misogyny with Black men was worse than anything Trump ever said. So when he said it, I couldn't be offended because I'm seeing it on social media. And this is where a lot.
So when you look at the exit polls, though, so those men probably didn't vote, or probably just didn't vote.
But that's what I'm saying. Who is he talking to? Because people are getting this, and I'm 60 years old. I have never been polled. So when people start talking about these polls and what's important to America and what's this and what's that, I can't name one person that I know that I've run across in life who can ever say they've been part of any poll, whether it be Cosmopolitan, Ebony, other than the census that they mailed out to people. So who are these polls with? So a lot of people, when I do this, and Roy said something, I say, because I'm responding to what I see on social media, because in my circle, I'm not having conversations with these retards, but on social media, I can see them because they got a clock behind, they present themselves. When I see Black men on social media saying something to the effect of the only woman they will ever defend is a woman that they're sleeping with, they'll never defend another woman. Mm-hmm. So I see their misogyny kicking in. And we talked about it earlier, and I ain't gonna drift, but look how many people voted for Hillary. Hillary won a popular vote. So part of it is what it is. But what we have to do as a race, and I've said this since I've been doing this, at some point we have got to come up with a real agenda and let the people, the agents of change, make change. I can't prioritize what I want over what you want over what Roy want. Whoever get the first time to holler at somebody who can make a change, that's who we got to all get behind. Because other than that, all these separate agendas, people talking about they want to check our people. People talking about they want child support to go down. Our people. So we're sending mixed messages because we don't have a clue. So I can't be upset when people call us out. It may not have been to me, you, and Roy. But right now, we're the unicorns. So when it's said, it's not said to the educated. When I teach a class, what do they say? Why don't most people like school? Because unless you're in the advanced studies, a lot of us are too smart for the class we in, and we get lost because they're talking to the slower people, even though we got to sit there and take the class. Some of these speeches are the same way. They for the slower people, and we get offended, but we know they're not talking to us. We actually shouldn't even be there, but we're showing our support. One of the guys last night said the only reason he voted was because his girlfriend kept badgering him about it. So there's some truth to what he said. We didn't like it, but at some point we have to lose some of the sensitivity when it don't apply to us. I've said things about black men, I've said things about black women. It don't apply to who it apply to. It's not a general statement. And sometimes when people say stuff, we know that all doesn't apply to anybody. So sometimes people say stuff, oh, that ain't me. Nobody said that. We can't take it. We can't keep taking it personal. When people say bad things about cops, I don't ever take it personal because you don't know me. When cops say bad things about black people, I don't take it personal. But what they're doing is telling you their experiences. And if we keep dismissing them and becoming offended so easily, at every single turn, we're going to lose out. At every single turn.
But let me jump in. Let me jump in because I actually want to say something about it before we move too far off of it. As you talked about the Obama piece, you mentioned something that kind of triggered something that I was thinking. My real thought about that, to me, is that was irresponsible for them to do that, and it's kind of based on. I didn't hear the stuff that you said Michelle had said. Of course, they made a big deal out of what Barack had done and said. But like Darren says, first off, we have to understand that it's not all of us. There are enough of us out there that did it. Now, I personally think that the male Latino vote is the one that pushed them over the top with the Republican Party. I think that is the big difference. The 20% of us that have gone to one side, that to me, we can't be too far off of that. You know, I don't think when you look at it, I don't think that there couldn't have been more than 5 points or 5 percentages from the last election. And I'm gonna go back and look at it to see what Biden won, you know, black men by, and things of that nature. I think Darren mentioned the word misogyny a few times. I think the reality that people have to start taking into account, and I said this to somebody earlier, white people are still 70%, 76% of the population based on the census. If the majority of them vote for pretty much anybody,
whatever they want, they gonna get. Exactly.
And that means that's white men and women. And so I saw another post that someone did that said all of these allies, all of these white allies that you all think you have just showed you that you don't.
Right.
In this election. Because that's where it's got to be at. It's just like the old Martin Luther King saying, and I know I'm going to say it wrong, but you know, it's the silence of those who are supposed to be my friends that hurts the most.
Facts.
And this is what they did. You know, they went in and voted. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. I think in that group of the white men that didn't vote for Trump, I really believe that those were a lot of those disgruntled Republicans who don't want him running their party.
Yeah. And so I'll say this, and to your point about, so the Dr. King point, it's the silence of my friends that hurts the most. In the case of the Obamas, it's the inverse. It's actually the fact that when you open your mouth to speak on black issues, to speak to black people, you are routinely speaking down to black people, particularly black men. At a certain so you all are a little bit older than me, right?
Not bit.
If we're in the same room, and you all are giving me wisdom as people who've been on this earth longer than I have, I'm going to be receptive to that wisdom. If you start to go into a disrespectful kind of delivery, I'm gonna be closed off to that. It's human nature, and so we can. I think that men in general are just like we're not as sensitive about things, you know, about how things are said to us from other men. I follow that, but in the case of the Obamas, we have been sensitive toward them. We have been protective of them, even when they've been in the wrong. We've been protective of them, and so I'm saying, if you're not the president of, if you are the president of all America, and you are the elder statesman, and your critique is only for Black people, then what you're saying to me is all bets are off. Now I get to critique you because don't be so sensitive, right? So when I talk about how Obama failed in these different areas, I don't expect so much resistance, because after all, he's not a Black president, he's a president. And unlike any other president that we've had, I don't have to be protective of Barack Obama. I don't have to be I don't give any consideration to how Barack Obama's legacy might be impacted by my critique, or even how his actual real life. I don't give him the same. I don't give George Bush the same grace that I give Barack Obama. I don't give Bill Clinton the same grace that I give Barack Obama. And there's a reason why. And so I'm saying, in this relationship between the Black community and the Obamas, where there are certain things that we know are off limits to do in the public sphere, and when we do it, we have careers that end up like Tavis Smiley's and Cornel West. When we have done it, that is the outcome of that. And we've never seen the Obamas say, you know what, Tavis, Cornel, come back into the fold. You know, let's let bygones be bygones. Hey, Jeremiah Wright, I know I had to dish you and disown you. Hey, Farrakhan, I know I had to kind of, I had to create some distance. All these people that Obama was required to create distance from and repudiate and all these things. And we got behind that. But for some reason, this man, who was a complete stranger to millions of Africans, he's a complete stranger. We don't know that man from Adam. He gets to not only be positioned as the voice, of one of the major voices in the Black political space, but he also gets to be the father in chief to grown men. So if I wouldn't let Roy and DVP talk at me, and we know the difference between somebody talking at you and somebody imparting you. We know the difference. Why the hell would I let a stranger do it? And why wouldn't I call a stranger out for doing that? And I'm saying the Obamas know better. And if we're going to have this relationship, and they're also, our relationship with them is emblematic of our relationship with the Democratic Party. I don't want to lay this at the feet of the Obamas. The Democrat Party has a strong history of taking advantage of the Black vote, which is why people are leaving, right? The same way the church has the habit of taking advantage of its parishioners. We don't see schools being built. We don't see scholarships being given out. We don't see it. And so people are leaving. That is human nature. We don't owe them anything. All the things. We don't owe them all those things. And so are we going to save space for them to be like the symbol of of achievement and success, but also get to critique them? Or are we going to make them a sacred cow, and a sacred cow that also gets to chastise us? And I'm saying, if all things are going to be equal, then we should be able to chastise them, and they should also dole out the same critique of Hispanics, whites, white men, white women, everybody. They should have a very granular, specific critique for every single group. And given all that you said about misogyny, it exists. I think every man has a little bit of misogyny in him, but I have also witnessed it in full force. So all the things you're talking about, but the numbers don't lie though. And so with all the shit that we talked about Black women, when we showed up to the polls, we still voted for a Black woman. And so that has to count for, actually it counts for a lot. Maybe that misogyny is just like, we talk shit about your mama, but nobody else better talk shit about your mama. Maybe that's where it starts and it stops.
But here's the thing that we have to do. I learned the difference between power and authority a long time ago. Authority is what your job gives you. Power is what we give to people. And one of the things that you always talk about is this symbolism. If we give somebody something, that's on us. Don't get it twisted. I have mad respect for Obama, but he doesn't affect what I do. When on the list of people that I want to have lunch or dinner with, Obama is not on my list. But I do have respect for him. When we talk about the education, which is why I always love to use you and other people, there were times that we failed him and he didn't call us out because we didn't know how to vote. So I understand that whole part. But there are lots of people who say stuff, all the people who speak for black people. If they don't speak for me, I don't give a shit. Ice Cube does not speak for me. But because he got a baseline, he speaks for people. Snoop don't speak for me. We give people power. We give them power. And then when they say something we don't like, we want to pull their black card. One of the things that I hate when people do is this whole black card pulling. All of us are black. We do not have to think the same, act the same, or do anything the same. And I hate when black people keep trying to make us one monolith where we're all this. We're not. Who you look up to ain't got to be who I look up to, ain't got to be who Roy look up to. We're going to all look to somebody individual. You know, EA is on this alpha male thing. And EA, I don't know you, but I'm not a fan of this whole alpha beta male crap. Again, that's some construct shit that black men love to use to try to make themselves feel better. Because, you know, he said, what he say? A real alpha male, which is bullshit, will never say what another man says outside your father, grandfather influence. Why? Fathers and grandfathers been wrong as hell. So why are those the only two men that I can say what they say? To me, see, that's that alpha male bullshit that we put up with. Because one, if you study alpha males, truly study them, and the wolf is the one we love to use. The wolf is in the alpha male they've learned from studying is in the back of the pack, making sure everything is okay. That ain't what we want to be. The black man alpha male wants to be out front. Doing what? Doing what? The lion alpha male is away from home all the time. So what is the great thing about being a fucking alpha male? But everybody like to beat their chest. We're alphas.
They get die early, man.
Who cares unless you went to college and you pledged? Nobody gives a fuck about this alpha beta thing. But black men love to try to do this to try to break each other down. Oh, you a beta male. Well, guess what? Beta male, by your definition, ain't much different than a slave. Without the beta male, a lot of shit ain't gonna get done because all these alphas want to lead. And if nobody's following you, who the fuck are you leading? And this is where we keep getting into these problems that Theo is talking about. All these leaders that we keep wanting to anoint who don't do shit. And yes, I ain't gonna call them names, it's a whole nother show. And I don't want Roy to give his disclaimer again, because next thing you know, it's gonna go racing across the screen and we're gonna have an emergency commercial break. But you know, Theo has told me how you feel about Obama. And like I said, I hold Obama in high esteem, but he's not somebody. If they said, hey, pick 5 black people you wanna meet in real life and shake their hand and have a conversation, he's not there. But I do understand in the political climate that he was placed in. When we voted for him, we didn't know what we were doing. So he couldn't put judges in because we didn't give him the power of the whoever it is that appointed judges. We didn't do that because we didn't know. And our ignorance to me costs us a lot whenever we elect somebody. We can sit here and tell you all the time, vote local. If you don't do shit else, vote local. Vote local. Those are the ones who make a difference in our lives. Those are the ones that we're going to hold in high esteem. We should. Theo just named 2 people that if I ever caught them in a corner, I would prefer to put a bullet in their head than to have anything to do with them. And I ain't going to call their names, but they're perceived as black leaders. But I know them. I have seen them in real life and know how destructive they are to the black community. I saw it with my own eyes. But that's neither here nor there. But other people hold them here. I know that they're shitty people. I know when the shit hit the fan, what both of them did. And when we do this, and I said it last week, and I ain't picking on them, I'm just telling you the truth. When we run across the old school of black leaders, they're too young to remember this. The Aronafis, the Youngs, whenever they start speaking and they lose people, they always say, and Martin told me this, to bring the old people back in, because they know they're irrelevant now. But they'll keep using the same ploy, which is part of the way he said. The Democrats are doing this. And you know, we talked about this. The Republicans don't give a fuck. Now, they've helped us out a little bit, but it was because we got caught. We were We were just the innocents who happened to get lucky because of what they did. And we have got to be better at this, and we have got to stop doing this whole symbolism shit. And more importantly, let me take my glasses off. Now, y'all know I ain't did this in a minute. This is my adult beverage. Normally I drink, Mountain Dew or something because I've been wanting to stay, whatever it was. But y'all know what adult beverages do to me. So blame Trina for this. And blame Theo, because Theo opened his door. I was going to try to behave myself, but Theo won't let me. In addition to this fake symbolism and this fake alpha beta shit, because what we love to do is we love to have an outlet to blame. We can't admit our own ignorance. See, I'm going to give Theo credit. He gave an example where he did something that he wouldn't do now because he's smarter now. Alphas don't do that because alphas are like that guy who just won the presidency. They're always right. They did everything perfect. We keep falling into this symbolism. We keep falling for all this other shit. Theo, I ain't gonna say Theo. Theo was here last week when it was said. And I'm watching Facebook and the shit was fun. Facebook, y'all caused me to go to work today because of the bullshit y'all was on. Roy, because I already talked to Theo. Are you a religious man? Shake your head, rock your head. Yes, no.
I believe in higher power.
Okay, I don't want to offend you intentionally. How long? How long is this bullshit gonna go on? How long y'all gonna keep praying for shit that ain't never happening? And I had to read a portion of the good book by the big guy with the sense of humor.
What's going to do around here anyway?
And the story of Job, for those of y'all who keep doing this same shit and expecting different results. God, the guy who don't make no mistakes, who is always right on time and all this other shit y'all keep saying. And if you into him, hey, go on and click out. Because God sat back and let the devil do whatever he wanted. And I want y'all to understand this and tell me where I'm wrong. Theo, you the moderator on this one. Job lost his wife. He lost his family. He lost his crop. And what was the bet that he made? What was the bet God made with his favorite son? Oh, watch. He gonna keep saying how much he loves me no matter what you take from him. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't that sound presidential? I'm gonna keep taking shit till y'all learn to love me. Y'all gonna learn to love me. Y'all gonna call my name and say that I'm the greatest shit ever. And it didn't happen. Oh, after a while, God said, okay, that's enough. Let me go on and give him something. So maybe Trump gonna give you niggas what y'all asked for. He gonna give y'all another $1,200. Then y'all can shut the fuck up. But I'm watching all these Christians.
You are in rare form tonight, sir.
It's right. She gave me a drink, and I told her to go on and get a disclaimer before we got there. Hold on. But if God is always right and he don't make no mistakes, and he gave this man a second time to be the president, maybe it's what God wanted. So maybe y'all who say y'all praying, maybe y'all ain't God's chosen few. Or maybe he just don't give a fuck about you. So can we stop with the prayer for everything and act like that's going to make something different? Can we get out and do the groundwork? Do the groundwork. If you got something you want to say, present it to people, but present it to a stage where you can listen. Me and Theo.
Hold on. So let me jump in.
You gonna get the disclaimer again?
Let me jump in. Nah, I didn't give it one time. Let me give it. But so let's and I want to stick with what you're saying about the Job story, and then I'll give a little bit more of my view on that when we talk about the whole religious thing, because I have often said I have a different relationship with the quote unquote church. I believe that, especially in today's world, that the Black church is probably one of the biggest hindrances in our communities overall. because sort of what you're talking about, they are preaching apathy disguised as prayer and faith. Because even with that, the Bible tells you, and I'm just using the book, using it as the statement as it says, faith without works is dead. The Bible tells you that you must obey the laws of the land. I mean, it's a lot of stuff in the Bible. You know, people use the Bible to get people to do what they want to. And that's one of the biggest problems that I have with religion in this world. I was going to say in this country, but specifically in this country, because the funny thing is the word religion itself is not even in the Bible. You know, we have all of these different denominations because people have made choices about what they want to do and how they interpret certain things. Now, to go to Job, yes, the issue was that Job would not forsake God just because he was going through. And the devil was like, well, you know, that's because you let him, he got everything. He got him a nice wife. He got him a pack of money. You know, he got his business kicking. He healthy. Let me put something on him though. Let me deal with him and see what it is and see how he does that. And I guarantee you he gonna curse your name. That's what it was about. But that is just a statement of faith. Now, one of the things that I think is different, I do believe that we think that God is involved in our daily lives way too much.
Yeah.
Because the reality of it is we make choices.
Because we need somebody to blame.
Huh?
We need somebody to blame. So who better?
Well, no, that's what the devil's for, which is the problem. Because the devil ain't did 90% of the stuff that people complaining that he did. Those were decisions, again, that we made as people. We have to get to that point where we start taking responsibility for the things that we do and stop utilizing God and the spiritual realm and all of that stuff as the reason that things are happening. Like somebody said, sometimes things happen because you're stupid and you made a dumb decision. That's why things happen to you.
Really, bro, know what you're going to do to me?
What?
Use that quote.
Which one?
That one? You know I said it like twice.
Oh, I didn't even hear you say that today.
No, not today. I made a whole post about that. Y'all just stupid. But I want them to stick with using God, right? Because God, I just put it in there. God said, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear. This is what that book says. So why do y'all keep going to this damn book? It tells you to be a slave. How long were we in slavery obeying Christianity and it kept us in fucking chains? Do what you want to do, make your life great, but don't keep going to this book. And then when you don't get what you want, be mad at this same book for this guy that don't make no mistakes and who's always on time, and he gives the greatest gifts on earth.
So Darren, I literally just had this discussion with someone else about a month ago as it relates to the way that the Bible and the words have been interpreted, translated, and used. And there's a lot of things that are different now, because one, you've got to take into context when these things were written, you know, and then two, chattel slavery that we have here is something that is the slavery that we had here in the States was completely different than slavery in other places. It was difficult to be a slave, yes. The biggest thing was most slaves were taken in war, and they were usually the men who were taken into slavery so that they could control whoever the defeated population was. Your children usually were not born into slavery. That is a unique phenomenon to chattel slavery. That it is born, your children are born into slavery. That's just like I told somebody with the same thing as it relates to children being born into sin. I'm like, you can't have it both ways. Either children are born into sin, or they can start being held responsible for their choices immediately. Because they usually say that a child, until they come of in the age of understanding or something, is the statement, which is, you know, for the most time, usually think is 13 to 15, the kids really start understanding the consequences of things that they do in their actions. But we have to look at, you can't just look at the Bible in the sense of where our vernacular is today in our words, because words mean something. That the things that are said mean something, and they have to be definitive, and you have to have the context for what they were used for. Mm-hmm.
So, in this book, because I'm not happy with this book. So, when God killed his own son for our sins, don't that mean we covered, so we should keep sinning because he already killed his son for that shit? I'm just trying to figure out how we follow a book that no matter which parable you use, the shit comes back and say it's crazy. Because I'll guarantee you that if any man tried to use his son for everybody else, ain't nobody gonna be happy. We can't sit here and act like this book that people love to follow. They talk to an invisible person. They talk to a man that can't nobody else touch, see, or hear. But if I say that somebody told me to kill Theo, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. But what is the difference between them and these Bible people? Somebody told them to do some shit. So why can't it be this same damn guy who everybody loves until they don't get what they want and they treat him like Santa Claus? And this is 100% Theo, because he got me on this symbolism and all this crazy shit. Because we keep doing shit with no end, we won't take responsibility for making bad decisions. Just say you made a fucked up decision. My financial situation was much better with Biden as president. But guess what? He didn't have shit to do with my financial decisions. I just made good fucking decisions. But too many people want to blame everybody else for something that could have been fixed. And it could have been fixed had they not been looking for a savior. Obama was the president for the United States. When people say, and I never approved of Trump, but when people say, oh, he ain't my president, well, you're stupid because you're on American soil. So dummy, he is your president, whether you like him or not. At the end of the day, I don't like my brother. Everybody knows this. I will not claim him, but at the end of the day, he still is who he is. I just won't say it. But it's stupid for me to say publicly, oh, he ain't my brother. And I never say he ain't my brother. I just say I won't claim him. So say you ain't going to claim him. But we keep going through this dumb shit about, oh, we want to use words in the way we want to use them, even though that ain't the way they were meant to. I overstand. Well, what the fuck does that mean? Because I know what over and under means. So you overstand, which means what? Because understand means you get it. So if you overstand, which is the exact opposite, that means you don't get it. If we're using correct terminology, you can't overstand something and be more fucking enlightened. It's just good. But we create shit to try to be cute and enlighten and all this other shit. Oh, I'm tired of you woke people. Well, so woke means what? We create shit as opposed to saying, and again, I'm gonna go to my man. Theo say, what I did 10 years ago ain't what I would do now. And I said it all the time. Who I was 10 years ago ain't who I am now. Who I was then ain't who I am now. So as people change, when do we start changing? When do we say, oh shit, I'm on the air, I'm gonna call you back. I ain't mean to answer like that. When do we say that this was my fault, that I made a bad decision? Oh, the devil made me do it. The devil didn't make your ass drink and go do that crazy shit. You did that shit because that's what you wanted to do. And you drank alcohol so you could have an excuse. Obama said what Obama said. Theo said what he said. wDVP said what he said. JBN ain't backing none of us. But we got opinions, and it's based on what we do, and it's based on us taking accountability for making bad decisions. Whether we picked the wrong woman, whether we picked the wrong job. Oh, God opened doors for you. I saw a post, and the guy been through chemotherapy, Hail Marys, and all the other shit. He ain't got cancer no more. He thank God. Well, what the fuck did the doctor do? Why didn't God just fix your ass at the house? But you don't want to give a doctor no credit, but you giving all glory to God because God, who put you in chemo? Who injected you? Who cut you? And this is the shit that. Listen, Christians, if it make you happy, be happy. But don't sit there and play both sides of the fence. Don't sit there and do that and then say, oh, we're going to hell now because whatever. Well, God's will. God's will, according to y'all, elected this guy for a second time. And we can sit back and talk about what he is going to do or ain't going to do. Theo, you my fact check extraordinaire. Trump don't give a fuck about saying what he want to say, does he?
No, he doesn't.
So, wild example. If he don't give a shit, what would he lose by acknowledging Project 2025? If we're being honest with his mentality and the way he does things, what would he have to lose by acknowledging 2025?
When
he said he ain't know nothing about it. Because he done say he don't give a shit about black people. He don't give a shit about this. Go ahead.
I mean, I just think Trump is a compulsive liar, and anything that could possibly put him in a negative light. I think he is aware enough. He's situationally aware enough to always be able to, like, you know, he does to the American public what women say men do to them all the time. You know, you get caught cheating and you're like, you know, well, why you go to my phone? It's like, but you got caught cheating though. Like he's always wiggling his way out. I don't know if I don't know. I mean, I think that Trump is, even though he won quite decisively, I don't think that he was as secure about, or as confident rather, that he was going to win as he probably could have been. And so when he's asked these questions, I think he's answering them with that in mind. Like, hey, I do know that this thing is probably still neck and neck, and maybe I'm even behind. So, you know, I don't know specifically, but if it were my guess, it would be because he was not confident that he was going, that he still needed to convince undecided voters that he was a good guy. And capitulating to this, you know, Project 2025 thing, boogeyman thing, that was put him squarely on the side of, you know, all the big bad wolves. So he, you know, he was being strategic. But let me touch on your point, because I think the passion behind what you're saying comes from people saying stuff like God is still in control, like all the things we've heard this morning to kind of spiritualize our way, you know, through this experience. And I read a post, and I wanted to just read it because somebody actually touched on that. It says, while I understand and agree, some people are says God is in control. While I understand and agree, some people are using that as a means to be dismissive. We can get so high and mighty in our own understanding that we no longer are touched by the feelings and hearts of other people. Maybe you have ascended to such a point that you aren't moved by politics, but that doesn't mean that its implications aren't impactful for others. If you consider yourself a loving and compassionate person, you aren't just moved by what impacts you alone, but how we are affected collectively. Don't go around telling people God is in control if you aren't also giving people a space, a place, a moment to live in the pain of their humanity, seeing them, hearing them, seeking to understand them, and walking with them toward greater levels of peace. That's from a Christian, by the way. And so so when you text me that earlier, when you said, am I a religious man? I said within reason. Yes, I am within reason. I definitely ascribe to a certain faith, but I also believe in, like, extraterrestrials, and I also believe in, like, ancient, you know, there's ancient belief systems that
alien theory
predate
alien.
Yeah, I do. You know, so my theology is it wouldn't fit squarely in, you know, a church, right? And I understand that, and it is what it is. But I do think that the frustration that you are expressing is similar to a frustration that I have expressed over the years, which is I've always said I'm too heathen for the Christians and too Christian for the heathen sometimes. And so I get that. I get that. It's almost like toxic optimism, but toxic spiritualism. It's like we don't really have an answer for yesterday. We just know that there were a lot of people that we didn't understand what was really in the underbelly of this whole MAGA movement, and that all became, you know, it was laid to bear for us in this very dramatic way last night. We don't even have to go to the Supreme Court. I was thinking this thing was going to go to the Supreme Court. We don't even have to do that, and so we're trying to process what that really means for all of us. And in doing that, if you are a sort of conservative and religious person, then your first place you're going to go to understand that is your faith, right? But if you are an analytical person, you're going to go to the analytics. And if you are a little bit of both, you're going to say, well, the scriptures does talk about how God appoints and sits down who he wishes. But then also, some folks, the Latinos, they did their thing. White women failed women. We can look at the analytics and it can. I don't see where they conflict as much as you might see, but I do understand the frustration around witnessing so many people say, well, God is still in control. Yeah, we know that. Like we know that if we know for those of us who do believe that there's a God, that God is still in control, right? And so it doesn't even have to really be said. I was going to say this. I checked my checking account this morning and my savings account, and it was still the same. And so that's how
we're supposed to keep tracking, so we can look
right.
in 4 years and see where we at.
Exactly. Now, whether God is responsible for that or whether Trump is responsible for that, the bottom line is that it was still the same. And whenever I'm in a workplace where it's chaotic, I always rest on like, well, as long as the checks keep clearing. And for me, I know, we all know that we're going to survive this. We're going to, and maybe we'll even thrive in it. I was talking to my mom earlier today, and I said, Mom, I came into my adulthood voting for my first election that I voted in was Al Gore versus Bush. That was stolen. The second president that I elected was the first Black president, and then we got a Klans member. And then we got a guy that was voted on in the middle of a global pandemic. And then we got the Klans member back. Nothing has been normal. And so if anything, I'm actually I'm accustomed to being in the circus. So I don't understand people who are so, I'll say this. I don't understand people who are of a certain point, like who've cross certain milestones. Like if you're 25 years old, I can understand how this can be like crushing to you, to all your optimism and all those things. But if you're 45 years old and you're crying about this, so what happened when you didn't cry when Bush stole the White House in 2000? Because that low key set a whole chain of events in place. You weren't crying when the Dems gatekept whatever. Bernie Sanders. If they never did that, we're talking, it's a totally different conversation we're having right now. So for me, it's like, I know we're going to get through this. And even though there are some policies and, Trump, he appointed a record number of judges in the lower courts when he first got elected. He's been putting all the pieces in place. Mm-hmm. And even with that, my faith informs me. Here's why I say my faith informs me that I'm still going to be okay. Now, what might inform you is the fact that you've made certain decisions and you put certain things in place, and so you can lean on that, and that's fine. And I'm doing that too, right? But I also know that there have been moments where I didn't have everything together, right? And I didn't have nothing but God, And some people can say, people say religion is the opium of the people. I think Mark said that, and maybe it is, right? But I also know that like, my faith in God has also kept me from breaking laws. My faith in God has kept me from killing people. It is, and it's also my fear of jail, right? So whatever it takes to like whatever guardrails you got that kind of keep you on the, in the middle where you're not like out here insane and making other people's lives hell. I say go for it. I don't believe in going and tussling with folk over something that is over. Let me rephrase that. Principally, the three main religions are about what happens after you die, right? I don't believe in having all of this angst and contention with folk over something that is going to happen after I die. Like I'm nailing this. Right. I'm putting. There's some life insurance and there's some spiritual life insurance in play you know, when I gave my life to Christ, that was like spiritual life insurance, right? Now it's blossomed and evolved since that time, but ultimately it was like I want to make sure that my afterlife is secure. I don't want to be fighting with folk who don't eat. Who cares? Like at the end of the day, I can still be wrong. There are Muslims who believe I am going to hell, and while I would never say a Muslim is going to hell, I do understand that everybody kind of has to, you know, if you ascribe to certain tenets of your faith, they walk you down a certain kind of theological path, and I save space for that. But I also save space for this. I don't know, and I think your frustration, if I'm hearing you correctly, I think your frustration comes from people's unwillingness to say I don't know. So it's those 3 words, and then I fucked up. Those 3 words, and if more people can say those 3 words, you know, maybe churches are filled.
At some point, we have to be adults and stop looking for somebody to blame when something go wrong. Things are good shit happen to bad people, bad shit happen to good people. Those are facts of life. And while we're doing this, it's okay. But I was a cop. I believe in the law. I believe in it. But you know what the law also gives me as a cop? It gives me discretion when I see certain things that I know that are illegal. There's no hard and fast that says I have to do this. If I catch you speeding, there's no law that says I have to give you a ticket. Officer discretion. In the book, there is no excuse for speeding. But I know as a human being that if you have a medical emergency, it's quicker to drive to the hospital than to wait for an ambulance. So I have the discretion not to do this. I don't sit back and say, well, there's nothing in the book that says it's legal to speed. So, sir, even though you're bleeding to death and you're about to have a heart attack, you're gonna have to wait 20 more minutes while I give you this ticket. So, you know, we can do this and understand. I want everybody to keep their faith. Whatever it is that keeps you going from day to day, keep it going. If I believe in fucking tiny dinosaurs, let me do that. What I don't like is when Theo tries to push his on me, I try to push mine on Roy. Roy try to push his beliefs on things. Push your beliefs on people who believe what you believe. And y'all can have an intelligent conversation. Though.
I need you to believe in aliens, DVP.
I do. I watch Ancient Aliens. Hey man, that's one of my favorite shows. But this is where we have to become more. If we're going to even try to get along with each other, we got to accept our differences. We got to keep saying we got to all do the same thing. We've said this before. I've said it with these 2 gentlemen. All we need to do is work on getting to the top of the mountain. Theo can take 75, Roy can take 285, and I'm taking 20. We don't have to be on the same road. That way, if we hit a roadblock, 2 other people are still going for this. If everybody get on 75, the first car that crashed, then we're all stuck. And this is why we got to keep saying we got to do this together. No, there's going to be some stumbles. And for the majority of people, like athletes, you learn more from losses, except for us. All we do is look for somebody else to blame. We can't ever sit back and say, we don't have a plan. We don't have a legitimate plan. We got a bunch of people who want things that what we want, it ain't even from them people. I can sit back and call Roy and tell Roy how much I hate Theo's living room all day and night. Which one of us can change Theo's living room? Nobody. So why am I complaining to Roy? We got to get, especially as Black people, have got to get past that. And we, as Black people, love to say what white people do, but most of us don't have no white friends. See, I had a white guy on the show, a white attorney. And you know what this white attorney and a successful law firm told me that blew my mind? He said, you would be surprised how many of these attorneys don't even have life insurance. I thought that was a Black issue because I don't know white people. But a white man came and confirmed there ain't no big difference. They don't think about death like that either. Even though we see them getting rich, come to think of it, why ain't a lot of them rich? Because a lot of them still don't do it. But we keep acting like white people are better than us. They make the same dumb decisions too. They make the same. And when we're going to be responsible, if we're going to get better, when me and Roy first started doing this, and he going to tell you the city, but when the city kept complaining about the police and what they were doing, if y'all get together and get one of these kids a scholarship and send them to college for political science, then y'all can influence who the mayor is, who the police chief is, as opposed to letting somebody tell y'all what y'all can't do. Because at some point, you can either keep complaining, which we love to do, or you can do something about it. Roy gave me a mandate. My management team gave me a mandate. Anybody can bitch, but if you don't have solutions, shut the fuck up too. So when we're doing this now, what is the solution? Right now, ain't nothing we can do but sit back and we can hope. We can hope, not pray. We can, and the floor is out there, go ahead and pray. We can hope that he's not as bad as we all assume he's going to be. But understand this, and Theo said it, our ancestors lived through slavery. I don't think nothing can get much worse than that. So we can live through this. We might not be happy about everything. If he deport all, if he deport all the immigrants, then y'all got to shut up about not having jobs. Because the jobs, the market said there were jobs there, y'all just don't want to work them. So
slightly racist, but
we're sitting back and we waiting for the roof to fall in so we can complain about what it is. But even through, for me, his first 4 horrible years, I survived. I already didn't have no hair, so I can't blame that on him. So we're sitting back talking about how bad it's going to be, and that's the same thing that Republicans did about Biden. So, and guess what? They survived. The white people survived Obama's 8 years, talking about he was the worst president ever, but they didn't leave. So before we start doing this whole doom and gloom thing, think about how you can protect yourself. Think about that as opposed to keep dragging everybody down with you. And this is why I separate blacks from niggas, because, oh, we got to look out for everybody. No, we don't. Some people don't deserve to come on the trip. Some people ain't going to change their mindset. Some people will argue about, you got to do what I say, or you got to be like this. And the first guy, I don't know you, but if you get a room of these self-proclaimed alpha males in the room together, guess what's going to get done? Nothing, because neither one of them is going to back down. Nobody's going to want to support the other one because all of them are going to want to lead, which is why alphas will kill. Alphas, in the term that you colored people use them, will kill us. We need betas. We need people who don't mind working, who don't have to be in the spotlight. We need this to survive. That's how we have gotten to this point. We need people in the background. So we got to create this whole mindset. How can I, what am I going to do? Theo said earlier, I forgot the phrasing, but what are we going to do to change the narrative? What are we going to do to make my life better? What are we going to do to make my financial system better? Am I going to keep saying I ain't going to work unless I make this amount of money? Am I going to keep, I ain't working for no white man. Who you going to work for? The people with small businesses, guess who they're hiring? They're hiring their relatives because they don't have to pay them a whole lot. They got no benefits. So when y'all keep saying, at some point, you got to look at a bigger picture. The bigger picture is, what do you want out of life? Do you want to be able to retire? But you don't want to work a 40-40. You don't want to work a 40-hour job for 40 years. So how you going to retire? So you're going to be working for 40 years at this little job you got that's not a career, where you can change the narrative. Get you a government job that you hate. My dad always says, do what you have to so that you can do what you want to. I retired at 44. I ain't no anomaly. I had a plan. And I get a pension. And guess what I learned? I can commit a crime. I can go, what Secret Service said, I can commit a crime and I'm still get my pension, which means that I have a form of security. And that's what we got to go to, as opposed to always worrying about what might go wrong. Theo finna get married. He can sit around worrying about whether or not his wife is going to cheat every time he leave the house. And you know what he going to get done? Not shit. Because he worried about something that there's no reason to worry about. And I would challenge him, if that's your worry, then why are you marrying her? Exactly. We're putting stuff out there so we can already have a reason to impact our own health. Let it happen. Let it happen. When I challenge people to do stuff, when everybody keep talking about the cops, tell me how many, ask your friends who done got pulled over by cops, how many of them got killed? So stop pushing that narrative. Ask the people, other than having a bad attitude, how many of them have really had a truly bad interaction with a cop where they felt threatened, where the cop pulled a gun on them or pepper sprayed them? You keep wanting to give me one point. You keep wanting to do this. When we talk about these women who do crazy things and dress like this and dress like that, are they women in your atmosphere? Are they women that are on your thing? Or are the men like us who are over 40, we looking at all these 20-year-old girls with the long eyelashes and short clothes? They're not in our atmosphere. So why are we worried about them? I don't see a lot of older women with these super long eyelashes. Every time I see these spotted eyelashes, it's on somebody under 30. I don't care. I don't care. I will speak for these two gentlemen. And correct me if I'm wrong, fellas. Well, Roy got married when he was like 12, so I'm going to take him out. But when we were in our 20s, we We wanted sex. Did we really care what she had on or what she smelled like? We had one goal in mind. And guess what? These 20-year-old boys, that's what's on their mind, sex.
I care what they smelled like.
Yeah, I'm about to say, right. But I'm saying, we weren't worried about all the things that the old man. We weren't worried about her brain and her career goals. We were worried about getting her naked. But now you see these older men trying to tell these younger generation what they should be doing. We were young and we didn't care about 10 years. When we was in our 20s, none of us thought about 30. We was thinking about next week, the next hour, something like that. We got to stay in our lane and do what we do and be good at it. When me and Theo got together, because I've been wanting Theo to do a show for a while, come on here, Theo, so you can get your practice in, so you can branch out. Because Theo was doing what most of us like to do. He had black man-itis in a good way. He was waiting till things get perfect. They're going to never be perfect. It's going to always be something you can work on. So you keep pushing yourself back and missing opportunities. You just got to step out there. It's like learning how to swim. Go on and get in the pool. You ain't going to learn how to swim by watching other people. You just got to go on and get wet. And you got choices. You're going to die or you're going to float. You're going to figure it out pretty effing quick. You ain't going to need nobody to tell you nothing. You're going to figure it out. And that's what we have to do. We got to start taking chances. And if we lose, learn from the loss. And if you win, share the information with somebody, whether they followed or not. Share it. I'm sure Theo got tired of me telling him to come on the show, but he realized, he's like, man, this old dude just ain't going to quit. So I can block him, but he'll call, he might find out where I stay. So I'm just
not
an
old dude to me.
I'm just
like he's 70, 80 years old. We are 16 years apart, sir.
Okay. And Theo, when you were 25, what was old to you?
Oh, 30.
Okay. As we get older, we keep moving the goalposts. I left the goalposts in the same place. I couldn't wait to be 50 so I could start using my old man stuff. So I'm cool with it. Because when you old, you can get away with a lot of stuff you can't with when you're young. So I'm proud of mine. But this is what we got to do. Everybody got to try to mentor or help somebody else who's up under them. Roy, you younger than me, right? Roy kept bashing me about this damn show that I was trying to avoid. We made an agreement for, I want to say it was 30 days. And somehow I got sucked into 242 years. But that's a whole nother story. But Roy saw something in me that I didn't see in me and didn't even want to do this. But he had faith in me that I didn't have in myself. So I could sit back and not, as I tell people, the old man I grew up with who used to be on playing checkers on the spools, said, listen, young fella, don't be like us and tell lies when you get old about all the stuff. If I coulda, woulda, shoulda. It's like, listen, man, if it won't get you 5 years in prison, try it twice. But don't be like us talking about all the things you would have done, could have done, and just do them. So when Roy kept badgering me, because I saw he wasn't going away and I had to go to Barters and he kept giving me that look, I was like, okay, we'll do the show. And that's what we need. Trina, who let you on the show? Bro, how can I block people? How can I block people from the show? See,
well, hold on. So let me switch gears for a second because I'm not gonna let y'all off the hook. Speaking of generational differences, the exit polls also gave some other interesting data. So here's the breakdown by age. Of support for Biden and Harris and Trump. So of those between 18 and 24, 56% went for Harris, 41 Trump. Of 25 to 29, 55 went to Harris, 43 for Trump. 30 to 39, we got 52 for Harris and 44 for Trump. 40 to 49, which is my age range, is 50% for Harris, 48% Trump. Gen X, between 50 and 64, 44% went for Harris and 55% went for Trump. 65 and older, 50% went for Harris and 49% went for. What the hell is going on with Gen X? Y'all, what y'all doing over there, man? What are y'all doing?
they vote without their glasses. They don't know. They just picking. They don't know. And you know, one of the things you talked about this, and when I was watching one of the shows last night, the lady said, you know, we interviewed the Trump people, and they said they don't understand because their polling numbers didn't say what we were kept being told. And the lady said, we don't understand. Somebody's poll is wrong because our poll says we are winning everywhere we need to be. But the polls we kept seeing said one. So I don't know if there was complacency. I don't know how these people are doing. Like I say, because I've never been polled, I can't even say I trust the polling systems because typically we poll who we know.
Right.
One of the reasons I love Facebook, I can put a post up on my page and ask people to vote or inbox me. And most of these people on Facebook, I have no clue as to who they are. So I use their numbers as people who I don't know, but they're answering honestly because I'm a bartender. They don't know me, especially if they can inbox me. So to me, those are truer polls than me just sitting around. Oh, let me ask Roy and Theo what they think. No, I need to ask all these guys in Virginia and Alaska and somewhere else so I can get a true estimate of what they think as opposed to what my circle thinks. Because before I forget, the same thing happened to Trump that happened with Obama. This is where they intersect. White people say they weren't gonna vote for Obama. The poll said differently. What you say in front of people to gain favor, when that curtain closed, change your mind. And a lot of this is the same thing because we saw the record numbers of donations that Harris got. And a lot of them we were told were not of the big amount. So it was a lot of little donations. So did those people continue on that path? Or did they do what was politically correct when we taking an office poll and everybody giving because they don't want to like the one who don't want to, but then when the curtain closed, they flip the script. Because
well, you got to realize too, though, man, with polls, I actually had a research and development firm. You can make a poll. I tell everybody anytime that they'll listen, I can make a poll, say anything you want it to say, and it be a legitimate poll.
Right.
I just have to choose. It's the where and the who you're asking the questions to. You know, it's like that's the thing, and it's people use them because they, like I said, they use polls, talking points, and as a way to create interest in topics and stuff. But with the stuff that we've got going on with this, like with Theo's question about the stuff. Hold on a second. Yes, you're loud. I'm in a show. I'm sorry, hit the wrong button. But so the thing that we've got to think about, Charlemagne the God came out in favor. He didn't say he was in favor of Trump, but he was in favor of something that Trump talked about. The transgender piece.
Yeah.
The what was the young lady, Theo, that we were talking about at the show that day? You know, that came out and said something. Because I told you guys about the conversation I had with the Uber driver who was literally just regurgitating the stuff that he had heard about Kamala Harris from the Trump people about what she did. Oh, the last election, the last time he was in office, I had more money in my pocket. Well, you have to look at life totally to understand why things were a little different back then. We were just coming off of the recovery of the worst depression that we had ever been in. So everybody had more money in their pockets. A lot of stuff was happening. But these kids, man, they are so enamored, I think is the word I want to use. But they follow these influencers. That's why they're influencers. That's why this is a thing now. Because thousands of people will follow these people on the internet who are famous for doing absolutely nothing. Nothing of substance. Just, you know, he paid his nails, so thousands of people follow him. He cooked. Somebody followed him.
But ain't that why we support the rich instead of our own friends? We want to do what the popular people are doing. So we're easily
like you said earlier, though, D. That's the reality is that's not your circle. Your circle doesn't do that. We know people who do it. Yeah, we know that the masses may do it. And the thing, but that's not your average everyday person doing that stuff. at least in my opinion.
Let me ask you all this. And I think Trina made an interesting observation. She said that actually makes sense. They're from a more misogynistic era. I wonder, because I have this theory around why we get so much flack from Black women now and women in general now. And I say because we had 30 years of hip hop where women were being called bitches, hoes, and tricks for 30 years. And so now we're up to bat. And now we are on the receiving end of a lot of like very like unfathomably like harsh criticism of like men, and it's unrelenting, and it can have an effect on your psyche. But my position has always been that as a millennial, even though the music that we had coming up influenced us, we weren't the ones making the music. It was actually Gen X making the music. They were the producers. They were the ones that, like, Tupac was Gen X. You know, Biggie. All the greats for the most part were Gen X or even young boomers, but for sure Gen X. And so I wonder. Let's assuming that the Gen X, the data on the Gen X is even somewhat, you know, valid, because there's been some other data that's come out that's kind of supports that. But assuming that is there's some validity there. Do you all as Gen Xers, are you finding yourselves becoming more conservative as you kind of move through this life cycle, or is there something specific to your experience? And I obviously, I don't perceive you all to be, you know, like chest beating caveman Neanderthal guys. No woman, you know, I don't. That's not the vibe I get off of y'all. But having witnessed some of the things that DVP has said, you know, being in other groups and seeing how strong the misogyny is, are you finding yourself becoming more conservative as you are getting you know, older, or is it something about your experience that comes from, you know, whether it's like being a kid during the Blaxploitation era, and, you know, all the films that were coming out, and then we had hip hop, and then, you know, hip hop had its switch, and now, you know, the young men are now the statesmen, and so, like, you know, Snoop was he had anthems to, you know, degrading women, but now he's a grandfather, and so that grandfather is not going into the poll, but maybe he's dragging some of those misogynistic viewpoints into the voting booth. I don't know. That's my theory, but I'm posing a question for the gentleman.
I think I'm more conservative, but as I look up what conservative means, I have a healthy mix because I'm looking it up, because I've always been torn between this conservative liberal thing.
Right.
And it says averse to change or innovation and holding traditional values. I do hold true to some traditional values, but I also know which traditional values in my mind were not good for us. You know, we talk about all the time, like, I'm not against transgender. What I am against is them not having their own sports league. No woman should compete with a man. No man should compete with a woman. I don't understand why they keep trying to mesh the two. They have Olympics for special needs kids. They could have they could play co-ed, or they could have a transgender league. And I'm all for it at that point. Yep. But no,
same.
And, you know, I don't want to come across as a hater. I just don't understand why Trina has to be a cis woman. Why are we cis men? That's some bullshit. But it's like, at some point, the Dems want to make everybody feel included, except for normal people. Why do I need a secondary identifier for something that's natural? That to me is just, and you know, that's one of the times where I just now I'm hard GOP, because I just don't get it. The prom king, you are what your DNA and your chromosomes say. All the other stuff, I feel this again. So if and a lady in Buffalo made a point when she got pulled over. It was the funniest shit I ever saw. She was riding around topless, and the cop gave her a ticket for indecent exposure, and she says, "I identify as a man." So what you supposed to say to that?
Right.
But now, it's like, where did this, what you identify as?
Right.
Yeah. So, let's keep these things where they are and let them be that. I don't care if you want to be different. I'm cool with that. I'm so cool with that. But I shouldn't have to tell my daughter that Theo she knows, and I'm just using him because I know he ain't sensitive, but Theo is in the mix. He got breasts, and she look at me and she says, Dad, why that lady got a mustache? I ain't know. Because she confused, and I can't sit. But I got to be sensitive to Theo, but everybody keeps saying they want honesty.
Right.
And it's like, where is that line? And it's like, no, we can't keep doing this to make everybody else feel comfortable while I'm uncomfortable. Because now I gotta figure out lies the way to tell this. And it's insane that's the one time I'm just purely GOP.
Right.
Because every time
hold on. Because that's the second time you said that. I want to jump in. Here's the reality that everybody needs to understand. You're saying it now. We are all conservative on some issues, and we are all liberal on some issues.
Yes.
No one person is just one thing. Even people you would consider hard-nosed GOP and Republicans, there are things that they are conservative about, but I guarantee you there will be some things that they be like, yeah, you know what? We do need to make a radical change. Liberal, just like you were reading the conservative definition, liberal doesn't mean anything more than you are just willing to be open to other opportunities and ideas. Your thought process isn't rigid. That's what that situation is. So we've got that's one of the first problems that we have, is that we've got to stop trying to make everybody all inclusive of one thing.
So am I a conservative liberal or a liberal conservative?
Huh?
Am I a conservative liberal or a liberal conservative?
Right. It's like, come on now. It's like you what it is. I'm gonna be conservative, like to use the examples that you had. You're gonna wait, like I told you to. I'm gonna be conservative when it comes to things about my children.
Facts.
And what I want them to be able to do. Or when they were little, like Darren just used the example. First off, I don't want nobody talking to my second grader about sex. That's a problem for me. Y'all don't over-sexualize these children too much. So what you and your person do in your bedroom ain't got nothing to do in school with them. So I'm conservative on that, for sure. Absolutely conservative. But see, here's another thing. Y'all want to start creating, and Darren, this is a term that you used. I remember when we first brought it up. Y'all forcing these gender roles on people, but now you mad because it's a little boy that want to play with dolls. But guess what? That little boy likes fashion. That don't make him a little girl. That don't make him not more of a boy because he's into that thing.
Right.
Stop forcing gender roles that we as adults create and dropping them on children. Children are sponges. They see anything that triggers something, they're gonna go and try it. They're gonna be interested in it. And because they have that natural curiosity, we have to stop saying, oh, you can't do that because that's for girls when you're talking to little boys.
Right.
Oh, you can't do that because that's for little girl or little boys when we're talking to little girls. Stop assigning gender roles to activities.
But that's you know how radical that is to even like as a man who's not 20 to say that, because I feel like there was a break. Like there was a time when there were like these very hard line definitions of what it meant to be boy, young man, and man, and making space for that very thing. Like, hey, just because this little boy like to play with dolls doesn't mean that he might be a nurturing father, because he's being introduced to this type of play that requires him to tap into a nurturing aspect of his personality. But if we stamp all that out, then he becomes the father who leaves the mother with the work of raising the child while he goes out and just works. But that's radical to even say that, and to be, you all had either boomer or silent generation fathers. So you're saying that as a Gen Xer, and to me that's I don't hear that coming out of a lot of people from Gen X on back as loudly as I think it would, because it would free people up. I believe.
But dude, see, so I was one of those kids. I was in drama. I was in musicals. I was in theater. So for me doing all that stuff back then, especially as a black kid, and then on top of that, I was a good athlete. So I'm crossing the platforms.
Right.
So I'm doing stuff, and it's like, didn't nobody, because and I'm pretty sure it was because I was also an athlete that people didn't look at me and be like, oh, he gay, because he doing because he in the theater competition, he doing the theater thing. They in the musicals, and hell, my troupe won regionals. And I'm just like, that was something I was good at.
Right.
It was a gift. It was a talent. We got to start getting people. I knew a kid ended up becoming a fashion designer. The worst part about the situation, dude will tell you he had to start acting gay just to get taken seriously in the industry. Because they're like a straight black man can't be doing that kind of stuff. Right. What the hell do you mean he can't be doing that?
Right. But let me ask you this, and it's funny I had this conversation about it. Is that a black thing? Because we're taught not to cry. We're taught to be so unemotional. But
that's what boys are taught. Yeah.
I spent time in Saudi Arabia. I've watched African men hold hands. In Saudi, the men kiss each other. Where we're taught all that is so taboo and off the radar. So we are as a matter of American black social, because I've seen white guys love to do crazy shit that black boys and men would never do because it challenges our masculinity. So is that one of those things that we created again? Because we're so I don't hear a lot of white people talking about alphas or beta men. I don't hear that from them. And I actually do got quite a few white. Is it something that we did to try to keep each other? Say it again.
It's a particular kind of white man that does that. It's the Joe Rogan. It's the Joe Rogan type.
The white dudes that watch the Fast and the Furious movies.
Yeah, it's those. But as a rule, white men are a lot more fluid and they are a lot more open than most men are. I believe. I think it's a Western male thing, but I think that we have to start with. I always start with this premise. Black people were an invention. The African American was an invention, and so it would be like your cow being your cow, and then your cow realizing, oh, I'm more than a cow, and then your cow has to learn how to be a human, and you're piecing things together based on like what you have observed, and then also what you're being. How you're being informed, and it's happening in a clumsy way. But we're seeing black men, I believe, become more evolved. That's why I always push back on that. I'm glad you addressed that. I always push back on that alpha thing because my goal is not to be alpha. My goal is to be an evolved human. It's to be a balanced human. And I think that we are just able to have broader conversations as black men around what it means to be masculine. The further we get away from the plantation, the more human we actually can show. We actually begin to show up. So these different iterations of black masculinity, they might even seem to be a little bit more on the left side of how we view it. But it actually means that we're choosing a certain kind of freedom and liberty and expression that we have never been afforded as black men, because again, we started out as cows. We started out as farm animals, and we had to evolve to become human.
And I think that's one of the things before we get ready to go. When Roy had said something to me one time, is we have to have more of us stand up. I got to the point where I was okay with talking about my depression because Roy and others said you have to, because nobody would believe it was you, because everybody puts it as somebody who has a mental disease and there's a look to it. And the more people who come out, the more athletes that come out or whatever, and take away these outdated narratives or ideologies about what this looks like and how we can make it better, then we have to. I mean, I don't know what your generation was like, Theo, but my generation was being too smart was never a good thing.
Right.
Whereas now we don't want you to we don't want you to keep dumbing yourself down. But in my generation, being too smart was never a good thing. Right. Oh, you wanted them, you got treated a certain way. So now if you play sports, you get treated a certain way because we created all these false narratives. Oh, if you play sports, oh, he macho. Come find out a lot of them were they like boys, they just happen to be athletic. And this is where we again have to start educating amongst ourselves at a base level of people that we know, as opposed to looking for these symbols or who want to be the next Obama. Well, define what you mean by being the next Obama. I don't want to be president. I would like to have a successful marriage and raise my kids, but that's not an Obama thing. There are lots of people at my level I can look to see that. There are lots of people I can look and see that. I want my daughter to have the ambition that a VP Harris had. So, but does that mean, but that don't mean she gotta want to be POTUS. It just means she wants to do this, and this. And we gotta, I hate when people say you can be anything you want to, because I'm just never gonna believe it. You can't be a tree because you want to. Stop. That's how we got into this whole other crazy shit. But if you're willing to put in the work, there are a lot of opportunities that are available to you. Right. But you got to be willing to put in the work, and we have to go back to emphasizing hard work. Yeah, we know nepotism exists. We know that what's the other one? Where people and get something. That's never going to change. That's never going to change. But if we know this, then start getting to know people. Every time I see somebody say, "Oh, I'm a team of one," then to me that means you're planning on losing in life. No team of one will ever succeed. You need other people. You need a community, and we have to stop acting like, "Oh, I can do this. I can do." Any, and I hate this term, any real man will tell you the minute he's sick, the one person he wants most in the whole world for most of us is mom. I don't care if we got a wife or whatever. Mom is who we want because we want to be babies. I don't care how strong we appear to be. Most of us are the same once we are truly sick. And if you want us to embrace going to the doctor, if you want us to embrace getting physicals, you have to let us be that little boy again. Don't keep telling me to man up or do this. Sometimes, hey, man, you need to sit down and go take care of yourself. You need to make sure you're good. We have to start taking care of our own mental health first. And we have to start pushing that with each other. We have to start having intelligent conversations where Theo can tell me what's wrong. And, it took me a minute to be able to have an adult conversation with a grown-ass man who started crying on me because I didn't know what to do, because one of the points Theo just made and was so eloquent. We've never embraced our nurturing side. We were never taught that. And we have to have it, because at some point, our daughters come to us crying. Mm-hmm. Our son is going to come to us crying. What do we do? Oh, man up and get over it. And then we're sending him down that same delusional path of losing because he can't address something and it becomes a bigger monster. Mm-hmm. And this is where we have to become better as a people. And we have to create as Trina said, we have to create our own culture within a culture where we can thrive. It's okay to be different, but you have to explain to your kids. If my son happened to want to be a girl, I got to explain to him, hey, this is life, player. You're going to have life a little bit harder. People are going to laugh at you. I can't sit there and say, oh, anybody who don't like you, no, majority still rule. Just know that you're going to make your life a little bit harder than it's already got to be. That's just life. We already know we got to work harder. Women have to work even harder. Black women have to work even harder than us. These are things that just are. There's no need in dancing around them. None. So we got to do better. And we got to give a closing thoughts. Sorry about that. Went too long. So Theo, give me something to think on until next week, sir.
We will survive and we will thrive under whatever circumstance.
Right. You got some good news for us about my JBN?
Stay tuned.
That's what's up. So I ain't finished all my adult beverage, but y'all know what it is, right? Hold on. So till next week, y'all know what it is. Peace, popcorn, and chicken grease. And we out.